we are hanging in there. I'm you talk to so many people. Hard to remember what shows you come on, but remember, I'm the ding dong that always gets frustrated about talking quarterbacks. And
He's got a quarterback
I've,
question. That's what he's setting up for. I just want you to know that.
I've got a quarterback question, Cynthia. No, this one, you're smart and you understand analytics, so I'm asking, truly to gain some knowledge. We've seen it happen with these hurt quarterbacks and what happens statistically. Do you have kind of like an opinion or a theory on why where are all the qualified or good backup quarterbacks, or do coaches need to change the preparation during the week for their starters? Like, why is it so drastically bad for backup quarterbacks?
Well, I would first challenge that. Is it drastically bad for all of them, or is it drastically bad for the ones with terrible O-line? I saw Marcus Mariota play pretty well. I saw Mac Jones play pretty well. And then I saw Jake Browning just get crushed all the time. So,
So what do I do with like Carson Wentz and what do I do in Baltimore? I don't know. I mean,
well, Baltimore is missing their left tackle, Ronnie Stanley, so that's really tough. And they're also missing like every other player on their team. That was a true attrition of all their players last week or yesterday, I guess. But I think that when you look at like a Carson Wentz, he has some really bad habits. There's a reason he's been on 6 different teams in 6 seasons. So, I guess the question is how long are you expecting them to play for? Because now Carson Wentz 3 games, you get the win in 2 of them. That's probably you're thinking 3 games get us. If you were to say I have a backup quarterback who's going to win you 2 of 3 games, you'd probably be like, all right, I'll take that. You know what I'm saying? So I guess the question is what happens when you have, and by the way, their O-line complete mess too. Their center went on IR just before the game, et cetera. So, I would argue if we had maybe a little bit better O-lines and O-line play, then we could have a better opportunity for any quarterback. And maybe we wouldn't get to the backup quarterbacks because perhaps the starting quarterback would have a better chance to not get injured.
Cynthia, so, he asked me a similar question last week, and I go, well, I'm pretty sure there's 10 teams in the league that don't like their starters, so I'm not shocked that there's not a lot of backups that we like. But based on that,
there's more than 32 good quarterbacks in the world,
allegedly.
Are there?
That's my contention. I think there might be like 15. I think there might be like 15. But with that in mind, Cynthia, so here's my actual question is, how many teams today would take Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback?
I told you. I told you guys.
I mean, 31 because the Giants would dig their heels in and be like, heck no. But again, Daniel Jones, O-line. And the fact that Jonathan Taylor's there to help make him look like an all-star, right? If you're looking at their 3rd in yards to go just as a proxy for what types of situations he's been put in, it's 3rd and very short compared to everyone else. That's, consistently after that Rams game, he dropped down to 2nd lowest, but it had been lowest before that. And I bet you by the end of this week, when all the stats are in, he'll be back to lowest third and to go in the league. So it's situational. Everything is the combination of all of the circumstances. I mean, think about Jared Goff. We would have said he wasn't a starter level a couple of years ago, and now can you imagine the Lions without him?
How many points in a row? So. That's too good thought. I want to stay with the Daniel Jones thing because I'm on that hype train. But you agreed with me because you thought, quiet as kept, it was probably one of the better signings of the offseason. So when I watch them play, their physicality is different. When you're watching games, and I don't want to pit them against the low-hanging fruit, but like Miami, but you can clearly see a difference in physicality. How intentional do you think that is with the Colts in that organization?
I think the Colts did a couple of things that flew under the radar a little bit. I mean, Daniel Jones, they had I remember back in the summer, people were like, no way, it's not Anthony Richardson. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, it felt like all of the news coming out of there was that they really liked Daniel Jones and they wanted to do things a little bit differently. And obviously there are different styles of quarterbacks. So having someone believe in you, I mean, I can't, quantify necessarily through analytics what that means to someone, but having someone create a situation for you to succeed, that really matters, right? Like the psychology of all of it. They also hired Lou Anarumo on their defense, and as bad as Cincinnati's defense was last year, I mean, maybe what we're seeing from Cincinnati this year, maybe it wasn't Lou's fault. Just a thought, maybe that was the wrong person, the wrong scapegoat. But ultimately, when you're looking at what type of leadership is in the room, what type of men are there, and when they're in, you see in Miami, it's messy there. Like I don't think there's any reports coming out of Miami being like things are great, everyone's super happy, and they sound like they're like really getting along well as an organization. Like that's not what you're hearing. So I think a lot of it has to do with you want to get a little more pop in your tackle for your teammates if there's a shared goal. Just like everyone's company, if you have better leadership, you're going to get better results. And if you have a situation where you're set up to succeed, you're going to get better results. So I think a lot of what we're seeing has to do with putting the right people and empowering the right people in the right places to be able to execute a shared goal. And obviously it helps to have better players, but ultimately there's some pretty good players in Miami still, and they did not look great in the second half yesterday.
And that's after losing Irsay too, and the quick transition of authority and decision making.
That's right.
Behind
pretty
the scenes.
impressive. Yeah,
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the thing about perhaps, I mean, it's never, obviously would never want to lose him, but perhaps sometimes we become aligned around a shared, loss, right? A shared loss can give us purpose. And I'm not like
that is poignant. No, that's fantastic.
I'm not, again, it's not good that he's gone. Like I would never say that, but it's, we can all, and his daughter taking over and perhaps being inspired by what her father had created. And, there's some things, again, we can't quantify out as outsiders what it feels like to be in that room, but you can see it when you're playing for each other. The Bills do it too, even though they had a bad game last night. They rally around when Kim Pagula got ill. There was a big rallying cry for them as well.
I've just seen it in other organizations too, Cynthia. I'm a Lakers fan, and after Bus, the late great Doc, it's not. We just talk like it's plug and play, but I love the point about kind of the unification and kind of in the purpose, right? You never want to make the choice to lose, to lose someone, but sometimes you are galvanized and a common thing because you can recalibrate and focus on what the real goals and objectives are or were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think like we're all humans, and as much as it feels, look, like the NFL is a business, and it's a business, whatever. But so is every company that everyone works for, right? So, pretty much, I mean, unless you're working for, I guess, a charity isn't a business, but whatever, like it's still a business. At the end of the day, it needs to operate in a certain way. Yeah. And if you're able to have a better, it speaks a lot of volumes. I go back to the Lions at the end of last year. I mean, I know it was a rough ending, but they had all of those injuries on defense, and yet they were able to beat the Vikings in a dramatic fashion because they had a very good, if there's anything that Dan Campbell is, he's a great unifier of vision, right? They know what the assignment is. They know what they're playing for each other. They're trying to make the most of everything that's going on in front of them. So that just shows you the difference. And then you have other teams where, once there starts to be rumors, I mean, about people getting fired and stuff like that, people take sides. It's very toxic. There's a reason why some places are a turnstile for coaches and others aren't.
And maybe you'll wait till after tonight. But both teams that I'll ask you about got off to some slow starts and some whispering amongst the fan base and in the national media. Who's closer to being more like we think they have been, the Lions or the Chiefs?
I think they're both close to who we think they have been. I actually think next week's Sunday Nighter is really compelling because the Chiefs had to solve some things, and Xavier Worley, who I will say he did appear on the injury report yesterday, kind of as a surprise. He had some ankle swelling, but having him back was the difference maker. It was, the catalyst for a big change against the Ravens. Now, apparently, the Ravens were also very hurt. Like there's some things there, but it started to look more like the Chiefs we thought. And when you have 15 there and you have 87 and you have some of the pieces, even if they aren't playing to the exact kind of cadence we're used to, it's still, they're going to figure something out. They're going to go back to the drawing board. When it's all said and done, Patrick will be the GOAT. And I don't use that term lightly. I don't say it about everyone. I think he will surpass, and I'm okay saying he'll surpass Tom Brady as, the guy who can figure things out and be a winner. And we'll have the questions, was it Andy or was it Patrick? But we'll have to deal with that when it comes. But I'm not worried. Their defense also looks really good.
Cynthia, you mentioned something there right before that about turnstiles for coaches, and that goes right into a team I've been looking at because I was a big Robert Saleh guy as a 49ers fan, so I thought he kind of did a little dirty in New York. Seems like maybe at 0-5, that was not a Robert Saleh problem.
And I don't think it's an Aaron Glenn problem too. I mean, there's just so. I think the Jets have to take a look in the mirror. I mean, there's reports coming out that their front office is messy and
man.
There's just a lot of mess. And usually when there's that much smoke, it's not because they're not on fire. You know what I mean? Every organization's going to have a little bit of someone being upset or because it's just life.
Yeah, people.
But I mean, it's just we're to the point now where it's just so much smoke that if it's not on fire, then what is going on? It's so strange. So, I mean, I'm not in the organization. I don't know, but
sure.
I love Aaron Glenn. I'm a big Aaron Glenn fan. I as a human being, as a coach, all this this is it's just crazy. It feels like they need to maybe they need to figure some stuff out with their structure.
What do you think about that roster? Because I don't think the roster's that bad either.
No, but when you see that many penalties consistently, turnovers happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the Bills last night, you have one game with a bunch of penalties and 3 turnovers. That's not normal. They had one interception before last night, some crazy stuff, right? They were not turning. That happens every now and again. But when you see it consistently and it becomes a pattern, then there's something there where I don't know what's going on. But when you have all of those penalties all of the time, that is a signal to me that something's not coming through on the learning part of things.
Cynthia, that's just how you drew it up with the Bills, though. I mean, the Patriots going into Buffalo and winning. But, I mean, outside of the fantastic uniforms yesterday, and full disclosure, I have Tampa Bay in the Super Bowl, but unfortunately I have them playing the Ravens, so that hot take may not age so well. But I do like Tampa Bay. I like the way they play. Yeah. They've got a lot of good. If you were going to give me some pause and pushback, because I have the Ravens and the Bucs in the Super Bowl, does anything bug you about Tampa Bay, or do you kind of like their trajectory in terms of their playing style?
Well, I mean, they're going to need to get a lot healthier to be a Super Bowl contender because that was a shootout yesterday between them and the Seahawks. And I mean, Todd, I love the pressure rate up front. They're great, but it's very hard to consistently win when your secondary can get got like that. Yeah. So it's less. I'm not suggesting they don't have the manpower. I'm suggesting right now they don't have the manpower. So I would say if they can solve that problem, then it's going to be. That was something we were talking about ahead of the season because they're other than Antoine Winfield Jr. Who in that secondary are we really scared of, right? And perhaps that's a situation where I don't know. Again, injuries are whatever they are, and figuring that out. But Todd Bowles' defenses do not allow people to run on them, and you saw some running yesterday against them. And they do. Usually they're fierce with the pressure. The pressure rate is still high, but you got to back that pressure up with great secondary play for it to really be effective.
Cynthia, there's 3 teams at 3-2, all with second-year quarterbacks, and I think they all had wildly different expectations heading into the season, at least in my mind. Maybe nationally they didn't. Patriots, Commanders, and then the Broncos.
Okay.
3-2, each of them. Which do you feel the best about?
I think, okay. It all depends on what division you're in, right? So I actually feel pretty great about all 3 of them.
Okay.
I think Bo Nix, what we see usually from Sean Payton-led teams is kind of what we saw yesterday. After September, and you can go back and look at Bo Nix's data from last year, and you can see the first 4 weeks were messy, and then things went up and to the right, like got significantly better. I mean, they play in a tough division. The Chargers are still really good. The Chiefs are still a problem. So it's we'll put that little caveat there. But when you have that defense, you're always going to be in it, and you work through some of these offensive issues. But if Bo Nix can do what usually happens with a Sean Payton-led team, then I think that they're going to be in good shape. Now, with the Commanders, they have a very old team. They have the oldest roster in the league. So you're constantly going to be worried about things like, okay, who's going to be playing this week? And that can get difficult week over week if it includes the quarterback, if it includes Terry McLaurin, if it includes – now, it worked for them this past Sunday, but that's a hard way to live overall. That has nothing to do with quarterback play per se, but it has to do with the surrounding cast and the chemistry. And even on the defense, like teams were getting, Marshawn Lattimore can get got, which means you put more pressure on your offense if if the pass defenders are leaky. So that's that. And then, you're looking at, what was the third one you were talking about? What are we talking about?
The Patriots on that one.
Oh, Patriots.
Yeah.
I really like the Drake May situation.
I do
but
too.
The thing that the thing the Patriots have to contend with is that the Bills are in their division. I know they just beat them, but still, the Bills are still a better team. So overall, so when you're looking at those three things together, I think the Patriots, they'll sneak in as a wild card. I like them ahead of the season to do that, but I still think there's, it is still the Bills division.
Well, this is perfect for you because you like to and can dig inside the numbers, and maybe I'll know more tonight. But I look at Trevor Lawrence and kind of the trajectory and then the plateauing and then the dip. He's still 1-to-1 touchdown to interception this year. They're 3-1. Defensively, they have been really good because they're healthy. How do you feel about Jacksonville? Do you need tonight to kind of gauge it, or do you have a feel before tonight on what kind of team Jacksonville is?
Jacksonville has a lot of great things going for them. The run game's working. The defense.
Yeah, they're 5 yards a carry.
Yeah, that's great. The problem is when you can't pass the ball, Trevor Lawrence's passer rating is very low, like third lowest in the league. His completion percentage is sub 60. The problem with that is that if you get down in a hole, it's hard to work your way out of that hole because the run game, one, it eats up more of the clock, and two, you get fewer big plays off of those. You need to be able to have the pass game working. I mean, their leading receiver right now is Brenton Strange, their tight end, and their leading receiving touchdown leader is their other tight end. So, when you have a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. on the team and you have a guy
Shout out Hunter Long.
Right? Exactly. And you have Travis Hunter and you're not able to pass the ball. It's just a tough way to live. It's a tough way to live relying on turnovers from your defense, which they've been great. 13 of them overall, but you got to be able to dig yourself out of holes when you inevitably get into them, and it's hard to do if you can't pass the football.
So, Cynthia, I know we asked about the team they played yesterday a second ago, but I think a lot of people, and I'll include myself in this, liked what the Raiders did in the offseason. Where has the disconnect been for you? Are you bringing a quarterback that I think people were like, oh, it's an upgrade? They like Genty in the draft. I know Bowers has been banged up, but I think most people thought Pete Carroll is a good professional football coach. What's happened there?
Well, number one, their O-line is not it's untenable. That is not a good enough O-line at this level. And they did not address that well enough. And then you saw what happened. Colton Miller gets hurt, and it's even worse. So, and of course, Gino's got to stop throwing interceptions. That is on him. But the O-line, I mean, Ashton Genty, the amount of times he gets hit behind the line of scrimmage is so difficult to deal with for anyone and for any offense that it's no wonder that the turnover rate is what it is, because now you're in these horrible passing situations. But again, Gino needs to stop doing that. You just need to throw it away more or whatever. But the whole thing starts to me with the trenches. And on the defensive side of the ball, the secondary is not enough. It's not. I mean, Max Crosby's wonderful and he is truly elite. But other than that, I don't think there's anything that's really scary about that defense whatsoever.
Of these 2-loss teams that could easily make the case they shouldn't have 2 losses, who gets your chips all pushed in? The Chargers, the Rams, or the Chiefs?
I'm still going with the Chiefs.
God, the Rams could easily be 5-0.
They couldn't handle that Mac Jones heat, though.
My problem
The
with
Niners
the Rams,
honk over here.
my problem with the Rams is that, and we said it ahead of the season, their secondary, and you saw, who did you see exploit it? Kyle Shanahan. He threw to exactly the same corner. He targeted exactly the same corner. You saw Kendrick Bourne look like a freaking all-star.
He looked like Moss out there in '84.
He did. And why? Because they just went. Kyle Shanahan will do that. It's infuriating. I am married to a Kyle. I think it's a Kyle like trait. Like they all know you're weak, and they'll go right to it and just keep going back until you decide to change it. You know, like that. But it's a Kyle trait, and he did that. So I think it's a whatever. So that's something that worries me about them. Whereas, and look, I love Matthew Stafford. He'll walk into the Hall of Fame. I'm a big Stafford fan, but I just don't think that Stafford does not scare me the same way Patrick Mahomes scares me. Down 21 points at the end, like I'm still taking Mahomes.
Stafford is cooking this year, though.
Yeah, but now no Puka Nacua and no Devontae Adams, which is basically how Patrick Mahomes has been playing with no deep threats and no whatever.
And they'll get Rice back next week too, right? Is it next week or 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think next week.
Oh, geez.
I think it's next week.
Yeah.
Time fly. I don't know. Time is a flat circle. Like
yes.
I have no idea what's going on.
Cynthia, let me since I was giving a little 49er honk over here, I'll give you a chance to be a Lions honk here for a second. How, I guess, what level of surprise do you have that they don't seem to miss their coordinators more? At least Ben Johnson. Maybe I won't throw both of them in there, but like, how surprised are you that there hasn't been a bigger drop off yet?
Well, we talk about like, is a quarterback a system quarterback, and then who's not a system. Well, I think you're a system quarterback until you're not a system quarterback. Meaning, I think that when you learn the system and now you learn how to be a leader in it, like you can't expect these rookies or even second-year players to come out and be like, this is how I want to do it. This is the play that I like. This is this, right? You have to learn how to be an NFL football player. And I think Jared Goff learned how to do that. So now he can help Johnny Morton in a way that he wouldn't have been able to do as a younger player, or that a rookie wouldn't have been able to do. Johnny Morton's familiar with the system. Dan Campbell is the identity of the team, so they all execute against that identity, and they've got a really good O-line. And remaking the interior of that O-line, it took a minute. Of course, it didn't look good against the Packers, but now you're starting to see where especially, all along the middle, that's a really hard part of an O-line to remake for a guy like Jared Goff, who relies on his life in the pocket. And Taylor Decker's been kind of in and out. So, but you're starting to see that, the O-line, the trenches are working. Jared Goff's taking command of the offense and working with Johnny Morton in a way that helps both of them get better. So I think it's not to say that they don't miss Ben Johnson. It's just to say that, it's like the mentor has now, or the student has now become the mentor. I think he's learned a lot from that situation.
And I'm going to be down in College Park this weekend for college with Nebraska. So I'm going to try to get all my Baltimore folks to chime in on this. Is there a world in which we live in, and he's going to stick with Orr. They've been besieged by injuries. Is there any world that we live in, Cynthia, where John Harbaugh could become either taken for granted or just underappreciated?
Of course. I mean, the expectations in Baltimore are sky high every single season. And but fans have very short memories. They have sometimes that can work in your advantage, and sometimes it works to your disadvantage. People are already saying, that they talked about it after the Bills game. John Harbaugh is a terrible play caller. Blah 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 blah.
Do they need a new voice? I'm like, what?
I know. I'm like, you guys are ridiculous. Ridiculous. But I do think that, bringing in, last year you saw them bring in Dean Pease, who, to help Zach Orr out. So I think you could see one of these like more historic, I say that because he's been in the league for so long, but Dean Pease out of retirement to come consult. And sometimes those things do help.
That's Cynthia Frelund from the NFL Network.
It's like Bizarro World, right? I mean, the dean. It's like, what are we talking? It's John Harbaugh.
Yeah.
I think that's ridiculous. I think that's ridiculous. When people say that, I'm like, y'all are ridiculous.
If you want to give somebody else one of the best coaches in the league, that's probably a bad move. Cynthia, we appreciate the time as always. Great stuff. We'll talk again soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks.